back to the Beyond Blues podcast. My name is Zach Kinsella. I'm joined here with Beck Markarian. If it's your first time, thank you for joining us. If you joined us in episode 3, welcome back. For new users, you can find us on Spotify and YouTube. But yeah, it feels good to be back. Beyond Blues podcast, late night edition. Beck, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Had a few hiccups earlier in the day, maybe within the last hour or so, but I'm thriving. Just saw the previous or the season finale for South Park and had a couple laughs and now ready to get started
Is
into
South Park a
business.
show that's still going on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They kind of stopped during COVID and then they got back into it the last year or two, making like 15 episodes within the last couple of years. So not as much as they did in the past, but
I did not know that.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of
How's The
current.
Bachelor?
Oh gosh, The Bachelor is amazing. Our girl Katie won.
I didn't know
We're
you
on,
watched that.
yeah, yeah, we're on her side since the first episode. We had my top three personally was Katie, uh, Jess, and Greer, and I didn't like Gabby. Gabby shouldn't have made it to the finale, but we can talk about this another time. How are you doing,
I'm more,
Zach?
I'm more of a Love Island. I'm doing good. I don't know if you've caught this one. This one's pretty funny. I don't know if you watch any like YouTube guys, YouTube comedians or reaction people. I watch a lot of like Cody Ko still, more like fading out, but I watch a lot of like Curtis Connor and like Danny Gonzalez, and they've been reacting to MILF Manor. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No.
Where like all moms go on this. It's TLC, so it's a classic,
Yeah.
and all these moms go on this show, and they think they're going on just like a normal. They claim that they are. They're not. They obviously knew what they're getting into ahead of time, and their men that they think they're going on the show with turn out to be their sons. So they have to like date within their sons, and it's just really awkward. But it's also really funny. Some of the guys on there really hard to watch, but overall it's pretty entertaining. But other than that, yeah, I've been doing well. Our Blues, getting on topic here. I've been quite entertaining the past couple weeks. It's been a pretty decent time to be a Blues fan. I'd say there's a lot of interesting topics that we're going to get into tonight, but overall, I've been pretty pleased. What are your thoughts on just like the recent play and kind of the direction of the team heading into the last month?
I'm kind of I do like seeing wins. I think at the end of the day, to see a team that's built like this right now winning games is really nice to see. Um, Especially just the level of play. Even if they haven't won, I think we've seen a more rejuvenated squad, and I think with the oh my gosh, with the deadline additions we had, um, those guys stepping up now, it's really nice to see. But also with us moving up in the standings, it's kind of hard to uh, really be too pleased with that since there's really nothing to fight for at this moment in this season. But I think if you can end on a high note, that's really nice and bring that positivity and energy into next year. But it would be really nice to get a much better draft pick. But who knows if we even see this guy for the next year or two. So um, won't be the end of the world if we pick 10th, 11th, 12th. Hopefully that's not the case, but I feel like the outcome of any game nowadays with the Blues is I'm perfectly content with. See a win or loss, I could see both sides to it.
Yeah. Before we go any further, I do want to shout out both of our buddies on Ohio State. Unfortunately, their season came to an end on Sunday, but big shout out to my buddy Cole and Beck's buddy Steven on a great season. Really entertaining game there. And yeah, great season to both of them, and looking forward to potentially getting with them this offseason. So, but yeah, back to just our recent play. I kind of agree with you. Maybe some more wins than we would have liked. And you kind of like seeing that they're turning it on and that they're battling and they're not giving up. But it's like it's a little too late for that, guys. And it's a little weird. And there's really nothing to cheer for. But yeah, I think there's been some great narratives. I think some guys have really picked up their play. I think some guys are showing leadership and showing that going into next season, they're guys that can be relied upon. And yeah, I think that Kings game is a really good example of that. I look at obviously not a result that the Blues ended up on the good side of, but going down 5-1 and clawing back into that game and coming up just short, I thought showed a lot of gumption from them, as Darren Pang likes to say. And I was really impressed by that game. I know it was kind of a miserable, terrible first period, but to bounce back like that and show some fight, especially for the Blues who have really nothing to fight for, was really, really impressive. And also, aside from that game, I was talking about some of the narratives that have been pretty cool. The D has just looked not worlds better, but they've looked a decent amount better, to the point where I don't see people on Twitter. I know my personal opinion. They're not something that I'm picking apart after every single game. And I just think overall, they've looked really strong. So we'll get into that a little bit later. However, I did want to get into our first topic since the last time we met with you guys, which is Pavel Buchnevich being switched to center and a little bit of the point streak that he went on. So on March 10th, Craig Berube in practice moved Pavel Buchnevich to center in time for the March 10th game against the Sharks. And then in the midst of switching to center, he went on an 11-game point streak where he recorded 19 points, 7 goals, 12 assists, including a hat trick against Minnesota on March 15th. And yeah, Beck, I just want to hear your thoughts on what you thought of the Booch at center experiment.
Yeah, so I think right now it's kind of getting the job done. Like, don't really have too many centers now that we kind of disbanded our center core for the most part. And I think him coming in and fitting that either the first or second line center role, I think it's really nice to see. But um, that Minnesota game was certainly something. Uh, but no, I think Booch as a center has been doing well. Is he a legitimate center? I don't think he necessarily is. Going back really to his face-off percentage, which is something you really need to value in this league, especially when every draw matters. He has a 33% this year, which may include maybe some draws that he took at the beginning of the year if someone got kicked out of a face-off. But I think even since he's taking so many face-offs and he still has a 33%, I'm not the biggest fan of that because that's the one of the biggest parts about being a center. But he does play a complete game, and it wouldn't be the worst thing to see next year him in center. But I think he is a winger at heart, and we need to make sure he plays wing once we get back into the playoffs. But until then, I think he's fine there. And he has the whole summer to improve, so we'll see about that. But what have you seen in him? You think he's been a good fit? I think he's been pretty good, but just the face-off category kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm glad you brought up because obviously not playing hockey growing up, and obviously I know the importance of faceoffs for the center position. From the eye test, I've been really impressed. I mean, when you get into the faceoff numbers, that's definitely something that's concerning, and it impacts so many aspects of the game. And if he can take the offseason, if the Blues do consider him a center moving forward, which I think is still up in the air, I think he's got to finish out the rest of the season. Yeah, I think that could be really interesting. I think if he can take the whole summer, if they do consider him a center and work on the things that a center has to do, I mean, most importantly, face-offs, I think that's interesting. I do agree with you. I think he's a winger at heart, and we see that when either the Blues go down in some of the recent games, he'll put them on a line with Thomas and Kyrou, and they'll kind of do their thing. We saw that happen during the Toropchenko top 6 experiment, which we'll get into a little bit later. And yeah, I think when the Blues are ready to contend again, I mentioned the idea of, is Thomas Buchnevich Shen down the middle good enough for the Blues to contend again? My answer to that was no. I think Buchnevich, just with wing being his position and that being his strong suit, I think the Blues are most deadly when he's there. And I still think that the priority of the front office is to bring in a center. Let's say we don't bring in Barbashev or O'Reilly back for the summer. which I'm still leaning towards the Blues don't do, but I still think the front office's priority is to target a center. But yeah, I've been impressed. I think, like you mentioned, it's gotten the job done considering the depth that was lost at the trade deadline. He's definitely stepped up in a big way, and we've seen some good moments. I think it's been entertaining for sure, and we've seen that he has the capability, and he did this at wing too, but he can drive a line like it's insane. He just his leadership, not from like in the locker room standpoint, but like on the ice, like he is so dominant and so demanding. Nothing that's new to Blues fans, but it's just been insane to see. And when you're at the center spot, I mean, you are driving the line, but he especially is just really, really impressed me. I mean, for never playing center, I think it's been really cool to see. But yeah, I'm definitely really interested to see if the Blues are considering him a center moving forward. But yeah, overall, I think it's been cool, but I still think the front office should see him as a winger.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to tell because this free agency doesn't really have too many centers. I still think Army could pull a trade off, which he seems to be really good at, either at the draft or just before free agency or on free agency. But I think for right now, I think Buchnevich is fine at center. Maybe give him reps, and then coaches have like coaches meetings. Your GM will talk to these guys, stuff like that, and I think they'll talk to Buchnevich and see where his head's at. If he wants to try it, then they'll tell him like, "Hey, we'll have you slotted here, but probably second line center." And if things aren't going right, then we'll move you back to wing. But just be prepared to play this possession next year. And I think um, that's something he'll definitely take. It seems like he's a pretty dialed individual, dialed hockey player. Loves to make himself a better player, but I think if he's up for that task, I can certainly see him doing it, but we don't know what will happen. We don't know what happens behind closed doors, and I think that from a fan perspective, we should target another center, and um, and I think that could lead us into a right step. But just seeing the center depth and free agency top 50 that Sir Valley posted, I don't really like
Yeah.
anyone there. So I don't think anyone would fit there. Like I think he has Michael Bunting first free agent target, which I think is just
Yeah, yeah, he does, who I can't stand, and I know you aren't
no,
much of a fan
I
of
hate
either. When
him.
I saw that, I
I
was like, that's number one.
It has to be the Toronto media. I there's just no
Has to
way.
be.
There's a no way. Like they put Patrick Kane like two spots down. Yeah, they have Michael Bunting, Damon Severson, who's a very good defenseman, Kane, O'Reilly, Orlov, Tarasenko at 9, and just a bunch of other guys. It's just I don't know. There has to be some big market bias. I'm not buying it right now. But
Yeah.
no, so I think like with going back to what we were originally talking about, I think I do like how Berube and these guys are testing the waters with Buchnevich as a center. I think it's a low risk, high reward potentially. Do I think it'll come to fruition? I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's nice to try it and kind of like what he's doing with the top line, middle six, really just the whole forward group, especially leading into like Torpachenko and how he was on the top line earlier. I think um, that didn't work to plan, but he's a young player. But going back to it, Torpachenko, he was promoted to the first line with Thomas and Cairo versus San Jose on March 9th. He only had 1 point in the 7 games, but I think it was pretty apparent. Like he just works his butt off. He just does a lot of stuff like that. Um, he drives the net, which allows Kyra and Thomas and the other top 6 forwards to do their thing and have some space. Maybe bring a guy onto him in front of the net, maybe another guy, but he doesn't really possess the puck too well, or really too much in a sense. He has good hands, good size, but he's a young player. he doesn't really generate too many scoring chances, but when he does get some good ones, as we saw in the game yesterday against the Canucks. Wasn't necessarily a negative experience having Torpachenko on the first line, but ultimately Berube wasn't seeing enough production, and he just wanted to kind of reset and go back to the basics of what we had uh, prior. But ironically, after he was sent back down to the bottom six, he did score his first game back, which was a nice treat to see as well. What what are your thoughts on it? The whole Torpachenko experiment.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Toropchenko. I texted you immediately once we got the news from Lou Korak and all those guys on Twitter updating us with the morning skate lines. I was fired up and I made sure to watch each and every one of these games. And yeah, I mean, pretty much everything that you said. He's a guy that in the bottom six this whole season has proved he's got the energy. He has made the most of the limited chances that he has gotten. I mean, when we saw it last night, as you just mentioned against the Canucks, he can finish. He's definitely not somebody that's doesn't have a ton of skill or anything. So I think this move made a lot of sense just to give him that trial run to see what he's capable of. And yeah, also as you mentioned, it wasn't a negative experience, but at the end of the day, he just wasn't providing what you would probably want to see on your top line. And I don't think that's a slight against Toropchenko. I just think that comes with more experience. He's still extremely young. And yeah, I think he definitely has the capability of being a middle six forward one day. Not sure about the top line, like high end talent like that, but I mean, we've seen him at his best, and we've seen that. I mean, he can score, and he's just with guys like that, just high energy guys. I think they have the capability of changing their type of player depending on who they're around. And he did what he's best at, like you said, with driving the net. And he kind of let Kyrou and Thomas and whoever else, I don't know, he dropped down with like Kapanen and Buchnevich during a period of time. And yeah, I don't know if Berube kind of instilled in him, like, hey, just play your game and let the game come to you. And I think in terms of like the Kyrou and Thomas experiment, I'll focus on more. Like he was getting a part of the cycle game and all of that, but it wasn't as if we were to see a Buchnevich or a Vrana on the top line where they can keep up with that just continuous cycle, find guys through the slot, just weave passes. Like he literally would give it off to them and then he would drive the net and then they would probably get it back to the D-men and then they'd fire a shot on. He was there for either tip or rebound. And I mean, that's his game. That's what he's good at. But I think just for top line, top six, that's not exactly the role that they were potentially looking for. But I really do think that he has the potential of getting there one day. Like I said, extremely skilled. But yeah, I think it will just take a little bit more experience, but definitely see the middle six potential in him. But is there anything else you had to say about the Toropchenko experiment?
No, I mean, I think it's nice to see a young guy who we didn't really see him being a highly touted prospect. Like we saw him cracking lineup at some point, but it was nice, not probably especially for him to have that whole experience of being a top six player. And it didn't really work out in his favor, but he seems like a kid who is determined to make the next step, and he's done that in pretty much every league I've seen him play in. When I think he was on Guelph Storm, um,
Yeah, he was.
and then he made it to the Russia World Juniors team, and then he just kept improving and improving. So it would not surprise me to see him in the middle six at some point. Probably will be a third line player, but with his skill, his size, if he can put a little more meat on his bones and develop in a maturity sense, I think I would not be surprised to see him extend above that third line. I wouldn't be surprised to see him second line, but I think with just the talent we have right now, especially adding a couple guys into our lineup like Cappy and Vrana, I think it's kind of tough for him. He might have gotten screw over a little more, but I think he cares a lot, and you saw in those interviews, he truly cares and he wants this team to be very good, and he's a role player who will do whatever he's told, and I really think, if the top 6 doesn't work, I don't think it's really a shot at him, and I don't think he takes it as a shot at him. I think he just wants to be the best player he can, and especially for this team. So I liked it. I think just the whole um, testing the waters on all these players is really nice. But I do love seeing his game, and it seems like the bottom 6 is a nice fit for him. So well, especially right now. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. I pretty much reiterated what you were saying, but yeah,
No,
I think
yeah,
he's a
I
good
thought you hit
player.
on everything. I thought it was overall, I thought it was great, and I think he'll definitely get the opportunity in the future. But as you mentioned, there were other with the talent the Blues currently have in the top 6. There were other guys that have fit the bill for Berube, and we haven't had a podcast since probably 2 games after our new guys started. So I just wanted to go over some of our impressions of some of these new guys. So first, starting off with Kasperi Kapanen. 7 goals, 4 assists in 15 games played for the Blues. Currently riding a 3-game point streak with 3 goals and 2 assists. Next, we have Sammy Blais, 8 goals, 9 assists. I don't know who would have seen that coming in 23 games played for the Blues. And he actually tied his career high in goals the other day. Really happy for him. And he's also riding a 5-game point streak, 2 goals, 6 assists. And then lastly, Jakub Vrana, 8 goals, 2 assists, 12 games played. But yeah, let's start off with Kasperi Kapanen, a guy that I love watching. And yeah, what have been your thoughts on him so far?
I've liked his game. I think I know my dad especially loves his game. He loves the speed. So I think he brings a ton of speed to our lineup that we just never really had. Kind of would have been nice to have that against Colorado for sure last year in the playoffs, but no, Cappy's been great. Yeah, 11 points in 15 games played with us. I think, he kind of had to get used to the blue style play and Berube, and it seems like well, like you said, the last 3 games he has 5 points, so he's starting to heat up a little bit. But no, I've liked his game. He brings a lot. I haven't been able to watch too much since I was on spring break and stuff like that, but don't know where he's slotted in the PK and stuff like that. But it just seems like he's just an all around player who's certainly more skilled than um, the average, like maybe middle 6 guy. But no, I think his speed certainly helps a lot of situations. It brings something different to our lineup, and I love seeing that. I love just seeing like a different team, even though we might not be the best team, but just to have a refreshing sense of style of play in some of these forwards, I think is really nice to see.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think he has brought a very nice new dimension to this team. His speed is something else. And I'll tell you this too. Once the trade happened and I was reading just Twitter comments on the Pittsburgh Post, Pittsburgh fans were pretty pissed about him being traded. And I remember being like, oh, picked up on waivers or put on waivers and then the Blues picked him up. Fans were pissed. And I was like, I don't keep up with this guy a ton. I obviously know at one point, the front office in Toronto was deciding between him and Nylander. Obviously, they made the right choice with Nylander, but still, he once was viewed in those eyes, and over the past couple years, haven't really kept up with him too much. But I'll tell you what, he has blown me away, and I didn't have any expectations for him. I didn't know what to expect in terms of production, but he is really, really skilled. And I think him and Buchnevich on the same line is something that needs to stick together for a while. They're almost like a Thomas and Kyrou in a way that they find each other so well. Like last night, it was, I think, or maybe it was 2 games ago, right circle, and they were just doing drop pass. I think Sammy Blais was in the mix too, and they just found each other right on the tape. And Kapanen's got a great shot too, which I also didn't know. We saw a slap shot goal against the Caps in the past week or two, and then we saw that wrister last night. But man, he is really, really skilled, and his speed is something else. So I love what he's brought to the Blues, and I definitely think he's a top six guy for us for now. I think he's probably a middle six guy once we probably fill out the lineup a little bit more, bring in some high end talent. But I love what he's provided to the Blues so far. But I want to get into Sammy Blais, a guy that in the last pod we were rooting for, and since then he's only taken off. What have been your thoughts on Sammy?
I think this is just a great like feel good story in a sense. I think Blake coming back to where he felt most comfortable certainly has helped. Like this is the player that we traded for Buchnevich. Like this is a player that we expected New York to get. Luckily, it didn't work out in New York, so it's really nice to have him back. But I just I love the guy. He's just a great. He's a fan favorite, especially from that 2019 team. I know I said this with Cappy, but my dad really loved Blay. He loved him in the 2019 series. Seems like he hit everything, and he still does. He has a boatload of hits since coming back, and his style of play just has not changed. He has the confidence, especially now that he's on a 5 game heater, and he's looked so much better. I think him finally being in the top six of the lineup, I think that's just been so nice to see. I feel like he kind of has the confidence now and knows that he can mess up a couple times and still be in the lineup where he can do things that he didn't do in the past, since he wasn't like a bottom six guy or a really fourth line player. So I think you're finally seeing someone kind of come out of their shell and be more confident. And it shows. It seems like he's just I haven't seen too many Blues games as of late, which isn't the best look for being a Blues podcast co-host. But no, I think in the games I have seen him play, I think he has been um, calm with the puck. Like it seems whenever he enters the zone, he kind of takes a second to look, and then he makes either just like a chip in or finds a pass. And I think he's just been a breath of fresh air. Um, I really have nothing more to say. Like I just love his game. I think I'm just so happy for him because that must have just been horrible for him in New York, just getting all the hate, sent down to AHL, probably conditioning stint. But it just finally just see him play his game without really a care in the world. I think that is a great thing for him. I think it's a great thing for our team, and it's gonna be a great 1 year contract that we have him on for 1 mil next year. So I think I'm really excited to see him. I think he's just gonna flourish next year as long as we keep him in the top six, which I'm sure we will. But don't sign anyone else because I don't want him to get screwed over. But I don't think they're gonna do that.
Yeah, everything you said, I totally agree with, especially the thing about the dad, too. I mean, my dad was a huge fan of Sammy Blais back when he was with us. We actually saw his first goal, I think it was like 2017. And my dad's like, that kid's going to be something special. I think he was just saying that. My dad says that about people all the time. But yeah, my dad was a huge fan. And I think it's been just a perfect relationship since returning. I love what you said about the fact that he doesn't have a short leash. We look back to the time that he was first with the Blues, where they were a contender, and he was in and out of the lineup. And maybe there was a game where he did something he wasn't supposed to, and then you see like Zach Sanford slide into the lineup, and he doesn't play the next game, and he was kind of in and out during that playoff run. But then he goes to New York, and then they have a deep team, and then he gets hurt and all this stuff. And when he was in, probably a short leash as well. So yeah, just to come back here to a team that's experimenting with so many different things, and he has the trust in Berube first from just being here, and now with nobody really breathing down his neck, with his skill to come into the lineup instead of him. I think it's just been amazing. He is a guy, and you might think this is a really crazy take because it's somebody of such high caliber skill and then Obviously, Sammy Blay is not anywhere near that. But I look at body movement and I look at the way that they just carry themselves around the ice. Sammy Blay has a very similar style to Leon Draisaitl in the way that they're not the fastest guys. They really don't move too quick, but they kind of play like upright a little bit, kind of like hunched over, and they just seem to make plays. He's not making the type of plays that Leon Draisaitl is, but I always, from watching Draisaitl and watching Sammy Blay skate, it's very similar to me in certain ways because they don't have a ton of foot speed, but they just seem to have good vision. I mean, look at that one play that Sammy Blay made the other night. Guy is coming straight at him, makes a beautiful pass. I don't know. It might have been Vrana. I don't remember who it was. He just made a quick flick pass. I don't know if you're watching the game. I know you said you're on spring break, but just like quick second plays like that and good vision. And Sammy Blay will probably never reach what Leon Draisaitl is, but that's just something that I've noticed over the last couple weeks. But he has, like Cappy, exceeded my expectations. Couldn't be happier for him. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think that contract that the Blues have him on next year, or what were you saying?
steal. No, no, that's
Steal.
certainly gonna be a steal. But no, I said I think in the podcast that we covered the Sammy Blay and Tarasenko trade, I said potential 50-point score, and I think it, I think at this rate, I think he should be around there. So if not better, but have
So
to toot
what do
my
we
own
expect
horn.
from him going next year? If he hit his career high in goals, which wasn't much, it was 8, in a fourth of a season, what would you expect from him moving forward for next season? Is he a 15 goal scorer? Is he a 20 goal scorer? Is he a 25? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I'm gonna set the bar at a reasonable number. I would say 20 goals is likely. Hoping he could get 43 points next year. I think with how he's playing right now, I that should be blown out of the water, but you never know. So I would say just to be safe, at least a 20 goal scorer, and I'm hoping 40 to 45 points. I'll be perfectly content with that because we had Barbashev last year with 50 points, and we got a first rounder essentially for him. So
Yeah,
that's a pretty good stat for a second liner. So I
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
20 goals, 25 assists. I'll just put it that. Be safe. It's not set
There you go.
too high of expectations.
I like that. I like that. I was gonna say, I mean, between 15 and 20. I said 15 because I was like, this could be kind of crazy outlier season, but I do think he's between that 15-20 range. I'd say 17 is not out of the picture at all to 20, but yeah. And would I be surprised if he got more? No, not really. I mean, he's proved us wrong this year, and I bet maybe during a full season, I bet he could do the same. And depending on who his line mates are, I know he's gotten a shot in the top 6 and getting to play alongside guys like Vrana, Kapanen, Buchnevich. Like, it's been amazing. So who knows during a full season? But I want to get into one of the most dynamic players since coming over, and that is Jakub Vrana. Let me hear your thoughts on him so far.
He's everything I wanted from that trade and beyond that. I didn't want to get my hopes up with him because you never know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think with just looking at that trade and our podcast we made on it, I was a little hesitant. You never know what's going on. You know his potential, but you really truly don't know if, it's gone or stuff like that. Um, I love him. I love Verona so much. I think he's just a smart player. He's really what the Blues need. We need someone who can score goals. We need someone who can finish on these opportunities. And it seemed like, I loved Tarasenko, loved him, was very critical on him, but I loved him to death. But sometime, especially the last year and a half or so, it just seemed like when you need a goal, he's not there. Or like if you set him up, like besides power plays, because I feel like power play goals was a lot of Tarasenko's goals last year and this year, but I just think you're looking for a guy to score, and it never seemed to be Tarasenko. And now you have Vrana, who got 2 goals, including one being the OT winner. And granted, it's 3-on-3, so it doesn't really simulate like a playoff style. But I think just to have someone who can capitalize on the opportunities that Buchnevich gives them, because Buchnevich can pass very well, he can shoot very well. It seems like Vrana and Buchnevich have something. It really just seems like we have a few playmakers on our team, being like Thomas. Kyrou can dish it pretty well, not as well as either Thomas or Buchnevich, but it's just to have either Thomas passing it to Vrana or Buchnevich passing it to Vrana or both of them passing it to Vrana on a line. Like, I'm just really excited. I think he still has that potential, and I don't like saying it because it's such a small sample size, and I really don't like how giddy I am over it. But I think this is huge because he's getting his confidence back. He can enter the offseason knowing like I still have it. I can do these things still. This earlier this year and last year was kind of just a fluke, wasn't who I am, just going through stuff. Now he can kind of get his head in the right space. He can play his game, kind of like I said with the previous two guys. And, second chances are really nice to have. It's obvious with Cappy, Blay, and Vrana, but I think this summer is huge for these guys. They can have this confidence heading into it or into next season, and I'm really excited for Vrana. I would like to see a couple more assists, and they'll come, but the goals I certainly do not mind. He's kind of ruining our tank, but no, we texted yesterday. We're like, all right, we need Canucks to tie it up. They did. We're like, oh, let's go. And then Vrana scores, and we're like, okay, that's fine. I'm fine with the Blues win there, as long as Vrana scored. So I don't know. It's just something like it does suck not winning games. I'm getting in a bunch of different categories here, but it does suck not winning games. But to see these guys do well in games that we win kind of softens the blow. So that's my thoughts. I really like this guy. I think he's a very good player. I've always liked him, so to have him on the Blues is really nice, and I do hope he can take the next level next year because he's certainly on a very good heater right now.
Yeah, all good things said there. And I mean, just another guy. You have to be happy for a bounce back story. It seems like the Blues is the home of reclamation projects at this point, and I love it. I mean, why would you not root for this guy? And I do have a couple questions for you, but first, I mean, my impressions of Vrana. He is, as you mentioned, it seems that he in the last couple games will appear and he'll get the puck and it's in the net. And I know we talked about Tarasenko was that guy in years past, maybe not the last couple years, but used to be. And I love that similarity where maybe you might not see Tarasenko for a little bit, but there was that period of time in the third period where you're down one and the puck just lands on a stick and it's going in. I think Blues fans are feeling that with Vrana right now. I almost knew when he was on a breakaway against Winnipeg, I didn't have a doubt in my mind that it was going in. And I used to feel that way about Tarasenko back in the 2016, 2017. It was a lock. And nowadays with Vrana, I feel like, I know he wasn't in all alone in terms of carried the puck into the zone. I knew he was going to score last night in overtime, but when he was out alone in front in that game against the Canucks, I was like, oh, this is a goal. I just knew. I just have that feeling right now, and I just love that similarity with Tarasenko. And one of the questions that I was going to pose to you is, do you think Vrana is the next pure goal scorer? Now, mind, I do know it's a small sample size and we can't go crazy here, but is Vrana the next pure goal scorer following Vladimir Tarasenko for the Blues?
Yes. I do think he is a pure goal scorer. I know I have to relate this back to Jay Fresh's Twitter at JFreshHockey. He just posted Vrana's player card today. I'm not sure if you saw.
Oh, it was insane. It was
I
insane. 99 finishing.
I don't know what half this stuff means. If I see and this is the big one I look at. When I look at Jay Fresh's player cards and projected WAR is a 90 or above, which Buchnevich and now Vrana is above that. I think it's a great sign. But to see his finishing category at or finishing rate at 99%, I think that's really all you need to know about him being a pure goal scorer. He can put the puck in the back of the net. You know, we never really saw Tarasenko. Um, like we never saw him at a 50 goal rate. Like, yeah, he had his moments, like you knew it, but just his inconsistency was what held him back, Tarasenko. So obviously, inconsistency happens to everyone. Like you're not gonna have 8 goals in 12 games for the most part, like what Vrana's doing right now. But I think with especially with how the game's being played nowadays, like I think 40 goals is something Vrana is capable of, and if you're looking back at it, I'm what was Tarasenko's high? Was it
It was
44
38 or 39.
goals? I
Or
thought he had 41 again. I
no,
thought he
yeah,
got his
it was like
41st against
2017.
Caps. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And then you propose the question, could he be the next pure goal scorer? I think he has the tools to. He has the shot. He has the IQ. I think that the 99% finishing rate is certainly indicating that. But I, I don't, I don't like getting my hopes set too high. So, um, but that is something I am pretty confident about. I think he can certainly put the puck in the back of the net, and I think he could do it at an efficient rate that I don't know if I saw Tarasenko doing for the most part. Tarasenko had
Yeah,
stretches where he got a hat trick in like 3 hat tricks in 10 games, like just stuff like that. And I don't know, yeah, he was just so inconsistent at times, and I couldn't stand him. I loved him, but it just seems like Vrana scores fairly consistently, and it's kind of hard to be consistent on this crappy of a team. So I like his
yeah.
game. I have the praise for him. So to answer your question, yeah, I do certainly see that. Maybe not the point total, but the goal
Yeah,
scoring, yeah,
totally.
yeah. But no,
100%.
someone who I have uh, seen do pretty well. If you want to get into the next part, if you don't have a comment on Vrana,
Yeah, no,
I think
I will add one last thing.
yeah,
I It reminds me of the 2015, 2014 era, 2015 era Tarasenko, where, as you mentioned, you'd get a hat trick, and then you could always count on him for at least a game or two to go by, and you know he was going to score. This is making me feel that again. I think we were like seventh graders back, sixth or seventh graders back then, but it reminds me of that. It feels like nowadays we can just count on a Vrana goal. He just always seems to find himself in the right spot, and I see Vrana. I can see this being 40 being a feasible number for him because of the type of player he is. Tarasenko, when we look at the 2014 2015, he was dynamic. He could create his scoring opportunities. Not the Tarasenko that we've seen the past couple of years, where you kind of have to get him in the greatest spot for him to score goals. But Vrana's speed, I remember back then with Tarasenko, he always had his shoulder dip, and he had his cut to the slot right near the face-off circle, and like he had his spots, he created opportunities. It just feels like Vrana is that guy, and we can count on him. I think 40 is a totally reasonable number for him. I'm not going to go crazy, but I really do think that he could hit it next year. And you look at the fact that Kyrou is knocking on the door at 40 a little bit. I don't think he's going to hit it, but like he's somewhat close. Maybe we consider Jordan Kyrou a 40 goal score. That's a conversation for another day moving forward. But can you imagine if the Blues, and then Buchnevich, another guy to not sleep on, he's not necessarily closer to 40 than Kyrou is, but you pair those guys together, can you imagine if the Blues had, I mean, we had 8, I think it was 20 plus goal scorers last year. But can you imagine if in the years to come the Blues can have 3 30 plus, maybe 4? If Robert Thomas can have another season like he did last season, where he was scoring at a higher rate than we're accustomed to him to, and he's having a down year overall. But I mean, for Thomas and Cairo, as we've discussed in the past, they're hitting their stride and their prime. So we don't know what they're going to get up to. But the fact that we could potentially have maybe even 240s in Cairo and Vrana, I mean, that just jumpstarts the retool, and it's really exciting. But yeah, as you're getting into, he's been awesome, and another guy that's been awesome for the most part. We're not going to acknowledge as much the game against LA, as that was a nightmare, but Colton
That's a
Parayko
write-off.
has been a guy, and I will say this. I will say this. There is a saying that says, I think it's, your criticism is as loud as your praise, or your praise should be as loud as your criticism. And myself, I know you at times, pretty much all of Blues Nation has been extremely, extremely critical, some of it justified, to Colton Parayko this season. But since February 11th, he has only been a minus in 8 of 21 games. And I mean, I will say this. He has shown glimpses of 2019 Parayko at points. And he's using his body, he's getting involved in the rush, and he's utilizing his skating ability to exit the zone on his own, which we were accustomed to in 2019. And I've just been extremely impressed with him. And it poses the question. I'm first going to let you share your thoughts, but it poses the question that I want you to answer after you share your thoughts on Parayko's play. If he keeps up this positive play, do the Blues look to keep him, or do they still look to move him this summer?
That's a tough one because, I think I'm gonna answer that question first. I think if you're Doug Armstrong, you need one of these defensemen gone. If you can't get Letty, if you can't get Scandella or Krug gone, then you might have to move Parayko. But but I think he's someone you need to have. And I hate it. You need to keep him because he is the one who logs minutes. He is the one who really, like, obviously besides Petrangelo, he's the second right-handed defenseman who just could control and shut down guys in these playoff games. Like, of course, has been horrible at times, horrible, and I noticed that too. But if I were playing 30 something minutes in the NHL, I would be making just as bad moves. Hell, even in NHL 23, I make horrible plays. It happens, and everyone needs to realize, like, we're human. Everyone's human. He's human. Maybe not McDavid because he's a psycho. He's a machine. But I think, like, you need to keep him. And you know what, Falk? I love having Falk. I don't mind Falk at all, especially if you don't have Petrangelo. But Falk and Parayko, 1-2. If you could just get a number one right-handed defenseman, or really just a number one left-handed defenseman to at least help log minutes with Parayko, then he'll be a much better player. I just, sometimes it just seems like these Blues fans, are really just fans in general, of many different very bad but like still kind of promising defensemen, just who do make mistakes, they just rag on them, and it just, I understand. Like, I do understand. Like, I watch the game, I see this stuff. I see Parayko make a fucking bad pass or stuff like that. Like, it happens, and it shouldn't happen because he's a smart enough player. He's in the NHL. He got this 8-year deal. He's made a bunch of money, right? So he knows better, but it is tough. Like, you're playing that many minutes. There's really no other defenseman better than you on this team, to really like bail you out. So I think, like, of course, like, if you could move him, if you can get something for him, which you probably could get a good return, then I think you do it. But especially if you can't move it. But you need to move a left-handed defenseman first. You need to prioritize that. If you're Doug Armstrong, you move one or two left-handed defensemen this year. You know, if we have to keep that action figure Krug, as STL Blues Views likes to say, um, you know, that sucks, but get rid of
It's
two
true.
defensemen then. Get like it just you're I think I would say the list that I want of defensemen traded, I would say Krug number one, two would be Scandella, three Letty, four Parayko, five Falk. I think the only thing that proposes Parayko over Falk would be his contract length. But getting back to his play, he has looked a lot better. I think with Parayko's game after the trade deadline, he could kind of play his game knowing that he may not get traded. So he was probably stressed, and you know, you're getting paid millions of dollars to be stressed. I would be kind of upset too from the fans, but you know, you think about this stuff like moving and stuff like that. Like it's just stuff that you never really think about. Like maybe you go to a new team, you don't really like the coach, you don't like the system, stuff like that. Kind of takes a toll on you. And you know, I'm not going to give that excuse to Parayko because he should know he has an 8-year deal. He knows Doug Armstrong that he should be staying. Of course, rumors came up and that might have deterred his game, but I think now that the trade deadline passed and he was finally like, okay, I don't have to worry about getting traded. I can just play my game, just do whatever I can. You know, maybe it happens over the summer. Oh well, at least I don't have to move in the middle of the season. So he's finally playing his game. I have seen him skate with the puck. I've seen him become a little more physical, not too much as I would like to see him. But I think he's been showing glimpses to his previous self and, you know, logging those minutes, like I said, you're going to see some errors. And especially when he is the best defenseman on this team for the most part, there's no one else to bail him out. So it looks much worse on him. I still think he has the potential. It's just we need someone to kind of help him a little bit, which just shows that he's not a number one defenseman. But I think, you know, you're starting to see more of him. Hopefully he keeps it up next year. I've been talking way too much and reiterating the same exact things about this, but I think with Parayko, he's finally able to just not worry about a trade. He's playing his game, and I think Army keep him if you can, but if you can't get rid of any other defenseman, then trade him, then get something for him. But yeah, that's just me. Uh, you obviously mentioned your thoughts on him, but um, I feel like I could rant about Parayko's game and both stand up for him and criticize him equally. Just like another fellow player of ours in Jordan Binnington, which we can get into his beautiful incident that occurred against the Wild. So we all know Binnington was suspended 2 games for waffle boarding Ryan Hartman after a goal. Um, I didn't really read what the specific suspension was, but I'm just going with a little waffle boarding, probably unsportsmanlike or something like that. But uh, I don't know. I think that's such a cheap play. I think he'd certainly deserve 2 games for that. I'm not sure if many people know, but the front part of the blocker really does hurt. It's probably the hardest material that these pads and goalie equipment are made of. So to get that to the face isn't really too fun, nor feels too good. So I think the 2 game suspension was fair, but also kind of detrimental to our tank with Joel Hofer coming into the lineup. But no, I think the Bennington incident um, was fair. It was a fair suspension. I think him pumping up the crowd after was a little funny, but he's a guy that you know he likes to get the crowd going. He likes getting the team going. Granted, it may not be the best moment in the game, but he probably had enough. Like he's like maybe he definitely wanted to stay in net, but He was probably like, you know what, like, nothing's getting the guys going. I'm gonna try something, and it seems like he does that in every incident that he is a part of. So I gotta respect him for that. It certainly has gotten a little excessive this year, but I think the 2 game suspension is fair, and I do like the energy, but that time might not have been the best time. But yeah, what are your thoughts here, Zach?
Yeah, it was really entertaining. I watched that whole game, and I actually had my girlfriend watching with me. And I've told her in the past about Binnington. 'Cause I obviously have a Binnington jersey. I'm a big Binnington fan, and I've told her all these stories about. She likes to know about all the individual personalities of the players and things that they've done that make fans of them. And I always had told her about Binnington. I'm like, it's a guy. I obviously told her about the 2019 Cup run, but I was like, this is a guy that like he's an entertainer. I love how Chicklets put it. Jordan Binnington is an entertainer at heart and a hockey player on the side. And I love that. I am a huge fan of Binnington, and that's the reason why. I totally understand the and Chicklets really let him have it for this one. Like Witt was like, "You're down 5, dude. You just let up 5 in a row, and you're going like this, and like it's like really, man." But like Biz, I love how Biz chimed in, and he's like, "Bro, he's an entertainer. Like, would you rather have your goalie get pumped 5 and then just like skate off to the side and like I know on the broadcast on the TNT, Lundqvist was like, I would curl up in a ball if I had just let in 5 in a row. And but Biz was like, would you rather have a guy go curl up in a ball and like just sulk the whole time, or would you rather have maybe get going? Like obviously he knew he was getting kicked out of the game, and he's like, yo, like we can still win this. Like obviously Greiser's about to come in, and just like fans like stay into it. I love it. He didn't have a great game. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Obviously, when you let in 5 in a row, that's not a great game. And in some of the games that he's done it in, he's also been not having a great one either. But at the same time, the Blues have nothing to play for right now. And he's still making that effort because that's just who he is. And I would so much rather have a goalie that cares, dude. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just from things that I've heard, he's not a captain, but when the goalie has that energy about them and when the goalie's going, it rallies the team, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a guy who won you a cup, so you really can't say crap about his game. If he wants to do something, he does it. Like there's really nothing else.
Right.
He's so good in playoffs to where like when it's his time to kind of step up, he does. So I think the guys know, maybe it's a little excessive. They'll be like, okay, you got to like tone it down a little bit, which I think Chief mentioned this year, but he knows, and I'll let it slide here. But he knows when to dial it in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, maybe he can pick his spots a little better. Maybe he can, but that's the thing too. Like when you're winning, you don't make a cheap shot like that because you also don't want to take yourself out of the game. So, like, obviously the Blues are losing, and he did that. And I mean, obviously, he got the suspension and all that, but the Blues are losing. Like, you want to amp up your team because you're losing and you want that jolt to get the guys going. I know people always complain. They're like, he never does it when he's winning. Why would he do it when he's winning? Right? Like, why would he either, like, he take himself out of the game if the Blues are winning and he's playing great? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I've just, I love that Binnington's an entertainer, as I've already mentioned before, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all, and fans can cry about it all they want. And I will say this: Swayman punched a guy in the face the day after, and you saw no media about it. But hey, I'm not going to start that right now. But
Hey,
with what you
is
said,
Benner gonna join the TNT panel one day after his career?
gosh, I sure hope so. But oh my
Oh my
gosh,
gosh,
would the media absolutely
media would
lose it
hate
at
him.
that?
Although you see PK Subban, like you saw that happening, but I hated Subban. I have a video on my Twitter of someone like just barely tapping Subban in the back of the leg, and he just flopped and starts crying. Like I did those antics suck, but like if you can, I don't know Bennington like his personality. Subban was definitely more for the TV and ESPN job, but I think it'd be hilarious to see him on the TNT panel, and it would not surprise me too. But he also it kind of seems like a reserved guy for the most part. So I don't know. I think that'd
Yeah,
be funny. We
which
should
I
make up
also think's the
some
funniest part.
rumors like what Biz does sometimes. Rumor boys.
Yeah.
But
No, I think that's why it's so intriguing too, is that you see pictures of him, you see videos of him, and in his interviews, he's like,
oh,
"Yeah, it was just a great game," and just like he's so composed and reserved, and then you see him do this stuff on the ice, and you're like, "This dude's psychotic." But I love it. I love having a goalie that's like part of it. The things that I always hated, and I'm not going to use this as a just dump on Jake Allen segment, but Jake Allen could be getting absolutely pumped back in the day, and he would just skate off. And there were times maybe he would chop his
freak a
stick at the
stick.
post, but he used to always just kind of skate off, whatever, and didn't really care. And I'd always get so mad. I was like, it's almost like he never. It's like he doesn't care. I mean, they obviously care, but I like seeing that Binnington gets fired up that he either didn't have a good game or something didn't go his way. And like fans might call it like, oh, he's just like a crybaby, but like he's a winner. And winners are like that sometimes, and that's okay. So if it
I
was
do
like,
hate I hate him wanting to get in fights though, because Benner, I love you, but you would get your shit pumped. Like I love him to death, and maybe not maybe what I'm factoring in. Like I don't really know how strong he is on a skates, which it seems like he is. But do you see like his physique?
yeah,
He's
I
not
think
he's
you and
not
I are both
the
more
most
jacked than him.
muscular. Yeah, he's not the most muscular person.
His
So
arms,
I
his
always
arms are like this, dude. I swear. You've seen his Instagram.
have you seen his legs? But no,
Yeah, I mean his legs are
I
worse,
see
but
that
his
on my
arms,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Goalies don't need to be built up like really too much, but he is surprising, and there are definitely goalies like Flurry. Flurry would get that dad strength out and beat his ass, if I'm being completely honest. But so that's the one thing I hate. I hate when he tries to get in fights because then if he does end up getting his shit pumped, then that's going to be on highlights everywhere, and I don't want to see that. But you do
Yeah.
you, Benner. I'm not going to hate it. You have a cup to your name. You can flex on almost every other goalie in the NHL. But
Yep.
no, and then I think, and this is I'm going to lead into the next segment, but I think we might have bias for Benner a little too much, and I don't like that because Joel Hofer was called up during the suspension, and he went 3-0-1. Um, I mean, the loss that he had, I don't think he wasn't credited a loss for that game against the
Hmm.
Kings, which that was an outlier period. But no, went 3-0-1 during his call up after the game against Winnipeg. Berube said that he was going to stay, which me and Zach both were like, "Oh no, that's not good because we're gonna be sick and this team's gonna be sick again." But no, in all serious, like it was really nice to see him stay for a little bit, and then versus the Kings, he was pulled after letting five up in the first period. So eventually, I think the next day he was sent down to Springfield on the 27th, and now leading into what I was saying prior to that, are we biased with Binnington, or is Joel Hofer just the real deal? Because it seems like Hofer just stands his ground. He plays a good game. Doesn't he just seems very calm and collective in the net, which obviously Bennington is until the wires cross a little bit. But just seeing like maybe it's the team that plays in front of him, which allows Hofer to do pretty well, or is it just what? Maybe the team's playing the same and he's just a better goalie. And granted that the Kings have been one of the best teams since the start of the year, but seeing five against you in a first period, that wasn't the best sight. I never saw that game, so that game never happened in my eyes. So that's certainly something. But I was talking to my dad about this, like, is Binnington as good as we think he is? And or is Joel Hofer just a very good goalie who's ready to be a 1A, 1B type goalie with Binnington? So, um, there's no right answer, obviously, but I think, the stats show a lot, and it shows that Joel Hofer has a 915 save percentage, including that um, 5-5-0 first period, and Bennington has a sub 900 save percentage. Granted, he's played a lot more games, and he's seen the worst Blues team in a while, but I don't know. Like, I just don't know if it's a goalie thing. Obviously, we've had some goalie problems in the past, and then Bennington solved it, and then Bennington's been good enough. But yeah, I mean, well, I guess this isn't really a topic we wrote down, but what do you think? Do you think it's more just like how the team plays in front of Bennington or Hofer, or is it more um, Bennington just not having it in the regular season? If that makes sense, and Hofer just granted small sample size with him, but like is Hofer just a more steady goalie? It just a weird one, but I want to hear your thoughts on that potential.
Yeah, no, I like that question a lot. And obviously, as you just mentioned, small sample size, and we're going to know next year as Hofer signed his deal, I think about a couple months ago. So
One
it's
way.
clear that he's going to be with the Blues. Yeah, one way. So it's clear that he's going to be with the Blues starting next season. And obviously, the guy's only being on a 1 year and definitely not bringing him back. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I will start with I was very, very impressed. I know he had been having a great season in Springfield, but I wasn't sure how the correlation was going to be. Comes up, gets called up March 16th, March 17th. They're like, you're starting. And yeah, he was a true professional. Caps are not the greatest team this year, but they still got the likes of Ovi and some other guys. Emphasis on Ovi. And yeah, he shut the door. That I watched that game. He was so composed. I was blown away. I mean, I know he was an all-star and all this, but just to get called up like that, come right into the game the next day and really shut the door, it was really impressive. I will credit the Blues. They seemed to play extremely conscious, knowing that it was his first start of the season. And maybe that has to do a little bit of the bias towards is Hofer the better goaltender, or has to do with just the way that they play in front of him. But yeah, I was just really impressed with him. And the LA game, which I also watched in full, the team did not bring it that game, and maybe we saw that Hofer isn't the greatest. However, I will say only two of those goals are really ones that he should have had. Maybe the other three are ones that were pretty difficult, and just the team didn't play as well in front of him. But I think moving forward, going into next season, I don't know if it's going to be a 1A, 1B situation. I definitely don't think it'll be unless Hofer really pushes Binnington in the start of camp and they think that that's the direction that they're going to go to. I still think it's going to be a clear cut starter, backup role going into next season, but I think it'd be really interesting. And then we can really have this conversation if it does turn into a 1A, 1B of who really is the better goaltender. And we're going to know based on who the Blues bring in and what the team looks like next year and how they play in front of them. Better indication of what the real answer is, but I think it's something to really look forward to moving into next season. And I'm definitely excited. And I thought his stint with the Blues was really, really impressive.
Yeah, no matter how good Hofer is next year, if he is, um, Bennington's starting game one of the playoffs if we make it. I that's where he thrives, and he won a cup, so that's we're all in that. But game one, Stanley Cup playoffs, I think I I actually do think we'll make the playoffs because that's just how the Blues are. But I think Bennington will get the start, no matter how good Hofer is. But we'll see. Because, well, did Huso start against the Wild series last year? I think he started the first
He did.
game or two. Oh, okay. Well,
He did.
still, I don't know actually, but I personally would go Bennington first game because he has that swagger. He just knows how to get it done, and
He
I
does.
mean you can't argue that. You know. Maybe other fans can, but do they have a cup ring? I don't think so. So,
Yeah.
but no, Hofer shouldn't he? He should have gotten 4 wins. But I think um since his skate blade broke and Grice had to go in, he
He
didn't get
split that
credited.
win. Or
He
no,
split. So
he didn't get credit with the shutout. He should have a shutout
yeah,
is what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. Was that Winnipeg? Then that
That
was
was
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, and
Then
that was the game after where reporters were interviewing Berube, and they're like, "What do you make of Hofer?" And they're like, "He's not getting sent down. He's going to stick around." And then
yeah,
obviously the LA game happens and doesn't
yeah.
last for too long.
But
But
they
yeah,
they did
it
say
was
that
after that
LA
Winnipeg
game
game.
they were planning on just him playing 5 games because they were like, oh yeah, we planned this. Granted, who knows, but maybe they just want him
Oh, I
for a
didn't know
five
that.
game stint. Yeah, I believe I
I did
read
not
it
know that.
between one of the Blues writers. They're like, yeah, this was planned to send him down after. It wasn't the 5 host showing. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
good. I thought that's what it
yeah,
was, and that happened. I was like, that's a real shame because he played some really, really strong hockey, and
yeah.
sucks
That's a
that
real
he
confidence
would get sent
deplete.
down.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
but
it really doesn't make a ton of sense for him to stay up anyway. I mean, they're going to make the
it
playoffs,
was
Springfield, and
yeah, it was really nice to see him get some games this year though. Granted, he saw a couple games the previous year um, when I don't know if his goalie injuries or maybe he's just line it up again, but he was our third string for a couple games and well, third string for a bit and then started a couple games. So I think, I didn't know he was this top 5 goalie prospect though. And
yeah,
it makes sense because he just seems so composed. I also thought he was like 6'1". I didn't realize he was 6'5".
I didn't realize he was 6'5" either, dude. I was blown
Yeah,
away
he has
by
a
that when I
baby
looked it up.
face. He's a baby face, so I'm like, okay, like probably 6'2", 6'1",
Yeah,
six
we
five.
got the
I'm like,
next
oh wow.
Vasilevsky, dude.
Yeah, he's certainly not Russian. Maybe the next Vasilevsky is that Zarenko guy down in Springfield. He seems pretty good too. So we have a
No, but
couple of pretty
in
good
terms of
goalie
height,
prospects
though,
coming
in
up.
terms of height,
Oh
the
yeah,
next Vasilevsky.
yeah, yeah. Might need to put on some pounds though. No, Vassy's a little more
No,
built.
not really.
Really,
I mean,
he looks
ish.
bigger than that. I think it's his chest protector actually. I think that's what's messing with me.
Never forget the iconic chest protector picture.
Oh, I know.
No,
I
dude, I've seen him in person, man. He's sick. I mean, yeah, he's 6'6", like he's a unit, but not that jacked. I'm serious. Kind of has an interesting like box build about him where he's not like
classic
he's not
goalie build.
yeah, like he's shredded in a way, but he's not really like juiced and like not huge muscles. But yeah, he's
Oh,
just kind of got an interesting build,
oh,
like a Ben
then
Bishop build if you ever seen him in person.
yeah, he must have a sleeper build because Joel Hofer is 6'5", I'll give him 182, and Vasilevsky is 6'4", 220.
Yeah, no,
So
he's got an
Vassy must have
interesting
some
build.
sleeper build then. Maybe it's just his beer belly after those 2 cups.
Yeah, I'll show you a picture. It's actually pretty funny. You'd be like, really?
Yeah,
That? And another guy that's kind of the same way. I actually saw him today. I walked right by him today. He didn't
Kucherov.
go on the trip with the Lightning. No, we're out of town. But Ian Cole stayed back. I'm walking into work today, and he's standing at the corner at the crosswalk. And I walked by him. I was like, "Yo, Ian," and he's like, "Oh, what's up?" And I was like, "Big fan. Was a fan of you on the Blues, and I'm a fan of you now," or something like that. I didn't say it exactly
Yeah.
like that. But I said, was a big fan of you on the Blues, and he was like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't think I would ever hear that down here." I was like, "Yeah, like I'm from St. Louis." Blah blah. It was like a 2 minute exchange, but yeah, that
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He has a sleeper build.
Speaking of Ian Cole,
He's jacked.
yeah, I believe it. Speaking of Ian Cole, I think CBC played in like the state championship when he was like a rookie with the Blues, and I got a photo of him. Like, I don't know why he's there, but I think it was like me and my friend that I played hockey with got a photo with Ian Cole, so that's pretty funny. He seemed like a good guy, but that was just yeah, that's a weird memory I have. I don't know where the photo is.
Yeah,
It's definitely hidden somewhere, but No, hey, I looked up Vasi's stats, right? So Vasi is a 915, and so does Hofer. So you might be on to something.
That's what I'm saying,
Hofer
man. We just
Hofer
gotta
has a
we just gotta hope
279.
Hofer's got more of a personality.
It doesn't look like it. He just seems pretty chill. So Vasi just seems his eyes pregame that someone made a
Yeah.
video about it. He just he's a whole nother level. He is so good.
No, dude, he's locked in, and on the marketing side of things, in terms of like player availabilities and stuff like that, him and the Russian guys. Sergachev is our most active and like wanting to do stuff Russian guy that we got. But man, Vasi and Cooch, like if once got their day off, they have no intentions of helping the team out whatsoever in terms of marketing. Like it's so funny. So maybe with Hofer we'll get a little lucky and he'll be more of a fan first guy like a Binnington in a way. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't have anything else, I think we've talked about some great stuff here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2018 draft and I see a couple notable names. Um, we have Joel Hofer, fourth round, then seventh round, Tyler Tucker. That Matthias Lafreniere guy, who will probably end
Yep.
up cracking the Blues lineup one day, just for a couple games, worst case. He's in at honestly not the worst draft. I mean, granted, we kind of picked up Bach wasn't going to be the best. We got Prunovich in this draft too. Pretty interesting. I like going through old drafts and just seeing like some of these players and how they
Yeah.
turned out.
I love watching redraft videos, dude. I love those.
Yeah, I will say the one guy that I'm kind of pissed we didn't get was Sandine in that draft from Toronto,
Yeah.
now Washington.
Brutal.
But granted, we kind of got a player who played just like him in Perunovic. So yeah, Dominic Balk had that
Yep.
upside, but didn't work. Didn't work. Well, but we did get
he is
Falk,
long
so
gone.
yeah, he's loaned in like I don't even know if he's in the German league. He's like loaned to some like league in like Denmark or something like that. It might be the German league. It might be the DEL that he's loaned to.
Yeah, I thought
But
it was the DEL. I was on his Instagram like a month ago, and I thought I
yeah,
was
I
seeing
I
DEL jersey.
I think it is DEL, but yeah, what a draft. Not the best first round pick, but
Yeah.
we noticed that he wasn't going to be the best, so had to get Falk for him. Make give our right-handed D a powerhouse until we lost um Petrangelo, sadly. But oh well,
Yep.
can't win them all.
Oh well. All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up here. Been a great discussion. I mean, we had a lot of stuff go down since the last time we got to you guys, and we look forward to getting some more pods out. Our schedules are kind of slowing down a little bit, which is good. So we hope to be getting these to you guys hopefully every weekend. We always promise that. Seems to fall through, but we're going to try to stick to that. But anyway, that is all the time that we have for today. Tonight, actually. As time
This
recording, it
morning.
is 12:30. This is Beyond Blues Late Night Edition. But on behalf of myself, Zach Kinsella, and Beck Markarian, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the Beyond Blues podcast. You can find these on YouTube as well as Spotify. We will catch you guys in the next episode, and let's go Blues.